Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to the Grand Canyon and then floating on down to Sedona. Come on, jump on in, join us. This episode covers about a week. We go from Zion National Park to the south rim of Grand Canyon, spend a couple nights there, and then we head down to the Sedona area for another couple nights.
On our way to the Grand Canyon, we stopped off at the Glen Canyon Dam, just happened to be on the way. It's one of our first dams on the trip. And this one was 710 feet high, built in 1964. I saw a guy posing with the sign in this same sort of stance, and I thought he looked pretty cool, so I decided to do the same.
We arrived at the Grand Canyon late afternoon and got our first glimpses of the canyon and the Colorado River.
Now, Holly, I think you could work a little bit on your poses too, instead of just smiling and looking pretty for the camera. Maybe you could be a bit more like this guy. We'll work on this for future episodes, folks. So we'd reserved camping here for 3 nights, and our strategy for getting around the park was very similar to Zion, was to use our bicycles. The campground was really centrally located for us, so we could either bike out to our hikes or just explore the rim, or we could catch a shuttle, throw the bikes on the shuttle, and then bike back. So that worked out really well again for us.
Our main hike at the Grand Canyon Park was to hike down into the canyon to get a sense of the canyon. And so we did a little hike. We went to Cedar Ridge, and this passes by the Ooh-Ah point. So we got down, and when we got down to our turnaround point, we saw a big group of mules, and that looked pretty cool too. The mules were just doing equipment and supplies, but I know you can take the mules down and back out. My parents had done that a few years ago, and that looked like a lot of fun. And a good way to do it is it's a pretty tough hike up the canyon. It's pretty steep. There's no getting away from the sun. It gets pretty hot the lower you get down. So I can see getting all the way down the canyon being a really difficult hike.
I think that might be a future adventure for us. We didn't get too far down in on that hike, but it was enough, and it was enough work getting up out of there. So what do we make of Grand Canyon? There's a review on the web, and I think it's made its way into a funny book about different park reviews, and it just refers to it as it's just a big hole. I think it was a little more than that. I enjoyed our couple of days there. I didn't need more than a couple of days, and we found that it was kind of a singular park, whereas at like Arches, you could drive around and see different arches, or there were different hikes at Bryce Canyon, etc. I found just riding our bikes along the rim or hiking along the rim, it was kind of the same or slightly different perspective of the same big hole. What did you find?
Yeah, I think so too. Like it's a bit of a weird park in that it's beautiful to see, and it's a great kind of viewpoint. But once you've seen that viewpoint, I don't know as you need to spend too much more time there. I think it'd be really cool to do a big adventure, something that you'd have to plan out, either some backcountry camping on the floor of the canyon, or like a rafting trip down the Colorado. And those take planning, advanced reservations needed, all of that. I think it's still worth seeing it for sure,
It was cool.
and
Yeah.
seeing that view. But I think to really have a full impression of it, you'd really want to do something big.
Yeah. I think 3 nights there was plenty for us. It was time to roll on. Speaking of which, where did we get to next?
From the Grand Canyon, we headed down to Sedona. We stopped in Flagstaff for a night. It was a nice, cool temperatures in Flagstaff. End of May, Arizona was really starting to heat up. As we headed down the next day towards Sedona, it was getting really warm. It was a beautiful day. It was also Memorial Day in the US, so it was very busy. Thankfully, we were actually going the right direction from Flagstaff to Sedona. Wasn't as busy as the traffic coming up. And we had beautiful views through the canyon, super scenic. We ended up getting a night at the state park near the little town of Cottonwood, and we spent a few days in Cottonwood, which was really kind of a cute town and really fun. And we had some great barbecue.
We did. We got to Colt Grill. I think probably we agreed the best barbecue we've had so far, and we've had a fair bit of barbecue. That was an awesome meal. The town of Cottonwood was just had a really fun sort of main drag, and it happened to be Holly's birthday while we were there. So we had ourselves a little 2-person pub crawl. We hit pretty much most of the establishments on that strip. We get up onto the hilltop where Merkin Winery has a restaurant. So we get out there for dinner, but a really fun stop there.
After the long weekend, we spent a couple days in Sedona. It was a little less busy, and it's still a very touristy place, but we found some really cool shops, restaurants. We did a mead tasting of a bunch of local meads in Arizona, which was really good. So kind of a cool stop and just a really pretty town.
It was. And we, of course, escaped for one morning to go do some mountain biking on the Red Rocks there. That was a must-do. A quick little montage. I promise this isn't a bike episode, but they were pretty fun trails, pretty good time out on that very unique red dirt, which made its way throughout the entire van and is still stuck to our bicycles. I think we will always have memories of Sedona and some red dirt somewhere in the cracks and crevices. We also saw some javelinas again. This was right outside the steps of the restaurant we were at in Sedona. But someone else there in the restaurant said they have poor eyesight and they can be pretty mean. So I aborted my plans to steal one and keep it as a pet in the van.
That pretty much wraps up this episode. We did about a week of travels in that episode, so we'll throw some new stats at you. The Grand Canyon brings us to 13 national parks. The Grand Canyon itself is 277 miles long, approximately a mile deep, and on average about 10 miles across.
Which I think is just a fancy way of saying, hey, it's a really big hole. The Grand Canyon is also a destination on a lot of people's bucket list. And so our question for you this episode is, what national parks in the USA or Canada are on your bucket list that you'd really like to get to? Or if you've had a chance to get to a few already, what's been your favorites and what would you recommend to others? We always enjoy your comments and questions, so please fire away. All right, it's time to ask our usual question once again. Where are we off to next?
Up next, we're doing some classic American road trip destinations. Route 66, the Hoover Dam, and Las Vegas.
We'll see you there. Thanks for sticking around.
Okay, bye.